On this episode of Star Trek Universe, our review of Discovery 408, All In, right after these words from our mystery sponsors. Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on the continuing Star Trek conversation of two lifelong friends who've been watching it together since they were 6 years old. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
How you doing, bud?
I'm all right. Man, yesterday was one of those days, man, like it screwed up my sleep schedule. I wound up having a bunch of crap to do, and then so now I'm just, I don't know. I feel bad. But it's okay.
That sucks, man. Yeah, I'm in Dallas, which I've been giving Alyssa a ride to work a lot, which like has been kind of messing my sleep schedule up. It helps her when it helps her out, when she's got something that she needs a ride for, and it's gonna save her much time. I don't mind, but it gets me up at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm like, that's not me. I don't do that.
Yeah, what was that thing when we were kids? When we were like, I don't know, 13, 14 or so. There was something, and every time you say that you're in Dallas, it reminds me of some kind of inside joke or something. It was. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like it was like Dallas was like sex or something.
Yeah, I do. There was a joke. There was some joke. It didn't have anything to do with Dallas actually, but there was some joke where the punchline was someone having sex. And it's not a funny joke. It was a joke that some girl in my neighborhood told that stuck in our heads, and the punchline was everyone's going to Dallas, which meant sex. Oh. And for some reason that continued to mean sex like throughout our teenage years.
Yeah, I'm sure I knew at some point what the hell you guys were talking about. Like I knew it meant sex, but I just couldn't remember like why. Like, so every time you're like, I'm going to Dallas, in my head, the back of my head, I'm like, ho, ho,
ho. Yeah, indeed.
Sorry, this has just been bugging me for however long you've been going.
A year now?
Yeah.
Coming here.
And I think about it, I'm like, I'll figure that out one day. And then I don't know why today I'm just like, I should just ask Matt, because I'm pretty sure that was where I heard it. Is like,
it was. It's funny because I used to. I think for years when I heard the word Dallas, it's still like that joke came to mind from when we were 13 or whatever. But now that I've been living in Dallas, like that doesn't come to mind anymore. But yeah, that's funny.
That is funny.
All right. Well, we got new disco to talk about, my friend.
We do.
I'm excited that disco's back. I've enjoyed everything that's been on, but I guess it's only been Prodigy since last we saw disco. But disco, I don't know. Disco is a lot more of the traditional Star Trek that I'm used to, and in many ways, just being it's the live action and the more these plot lines of the big universe sweeping stuff, and I'm pumped, man. I'm excited about it.
That's cool, man. I'm happy that Star Trek is just still happening. Like, this episode didn't necessarily move the needle for me too much. Like, I liked elements of it, and I didn't feel like it moved the plot ahead.
Agreed.
Too much.
Agreed completely.
It was a bit flat for an opener.
Yeah. Well, it left us in the same place we were at the beginning. I mean, the entire episode is basically like, if we look at like what happened between the finale and this episode, all that happened that we know about is they have a tracking device on them now. So, I mean, like that is a plot movement forward. Like they did have to figure out, we even talked about it on our last podcast about like, yeah, we're going to have to figure out a way for them to track them through Spore Drive, because that's something that no one's ever had to do because there's only been one Spore Drive ship. But this entire episode is just that, just figuring out, just putting a tracker on him,
Well, we do know that now the DMA is not a weapon, it's a dredge. And that the 10C aliens are so powerful Like what is it? Stamets said that they couldn't. Our wildest assumptions are nothing.
Yeah, something like that.
And they've got a freaking field around the system that measures 220 million kilometers. And I did look that up. It is 10% bigger than the Dyson sphere from TNG's Relics. Like, remember the Dyson sphere that like Scotty and Franklin crashed on in Relics?
Vaguely.
And it was like, holy shit, it's a Dyson sphere. It's like, a big metal thing that's just covering a system. Yeah, it's bigger than that.
Yeah. They say it's big enough for a star and multiple, and 2 or 3 whatever orbital bodies. So yeah, this seems like some sort of really powerful alien, but it's strange because they don't seem godlike. Like when you have the Q that seem to be able to just like do whatever they want to do, but with the snap of a fingers. That's like magic, But this is a race that seems to, for whatever reason, it needs to build this field. It looks like some sort of maybe protection from prying eyes, and it also needs to dredge for energy. Sort of like this is maybe their version of drilling for oil or whatever.
Yeah,
but what does that mean? In relation to Starfleet,
Well, I'll tell you what, they used boronite as fuel, is what they said. And boronite, sure enough, is from Star Trek canon. It was discussed at length in Voyager. And it's an element that forms naturally in infinitesimal quantities. And the Borg used some boronite ore to synthesize a single omega molecule, but were unable to repeat the experiment as they never found another source of the ore in Voyager's The Omega Directive. So it's kind of a rare, hard to get thing, but it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, they said here that boronite, they had to look for across the entire systems that were destroyed by the DMA, and they should have found trace amounts of it because it's kind of like ubiquitous across the stars in trace amounts. So that's just like that in itself leads you to believe if they're just trying to find this small amount of boronite by like completely extracting a system like that,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we're clearly getting to some sort of question of the ethics of this sort of like destructive drilling, for lack of a better term. Whatever these aliens are, they're destructively drilling into our environment or whatever, but where are they from? Like, are they from this place, or is that just where they've come to? Like, it almost feels like they're just in an outpost out in the edge of the system, and they're just like using our entire galaxy as a fuel source,
Yeah.
As if we would go to like, let's say, an area of the ocean, and we would like build a little observatory where they're going to be like drilling. It's like a drilling platform, right? Like, so this thing that's out on the edge of the galactic barrier could just be their drilling platform. It might not be even like their species. It could just be a couple of beings on a drilling platform.
Yeah, could be. But it does, seem to be. It now seems that yes, in fact, Starfleet was right. It's not a weapon. It would have been better to go to try to talk to them and be like, "Hey, y'all are killing us. Can you stop?"
It's possible that it would be better. It's still very possible that like this group is still just doesn't care about this life. The life forms of this universe. I mean, I feel like whoever this is, they've got to know what they're doing. I mean, I guess. This could be akin to what happened in season 2 of Discovery, when they found out that the Discovery's traversal through the spore were affecting those spore.
It was killing
aliens.
the mycelial network, yeah.
Right. They had that whole episode where like Culver is trapped there with the sort of spore drive aliens or whatever. And they're like, you're hurting us, It could be something like that where they don't even know. But then again, whether they know or not, once they know, will they care? Because in that episode with Culber, the Federation, decides to try to change their ways of how they're whatever. I don't even remember exactly what they decided to do. They decided to change the way they're using the spore drive.
Right.
So as not to harm these guys.
Mhm.
But in the opposite, in the mirror universe, they are also affecting the mycelial network and destroying it, and they don't care.
Yeah.
Like they're just, and even to their own detriment, they don't care.
Yeah. As they said, if Book and Tarka destroy the DMA, these aliens with weapons beyond our wildest assumptions will see it as an act of war. And then everybody's definitely going to die.
Yeah, that's true. Pretty likely.
So you got to try to diplomatize.
You always got to try to diplomatize.
Diplomatize in Dallas. That's the real reason Book and Michael broke up. They want Michael to be more like Kirk. She's got to get it on with one of these sphere aliens or whatever they are.
True. Definitely got to get it on with a sphere alien. Hey,
but not the sphere alien from Enterprise.
Speaking of spherical aliens, what about that changeling turning into a tribble?
That was fun.
And rolling across the floor.
That was fun.
Yeah, overall, so this episode, as you said, I don't feel like it moved much forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do get those two reveals, but what we did get was just like a fun episode of like the Star Trek universe where there's like gambling and intrigue, and it felt like all kinds of, it felt like they were returning to their courier lifestyle,
Mm-hmm. I always like when Star Trek goes to the little seedy alien bars.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like there's like a lack of that to some degree. Like there's a lot of Star Trek where that doesn't happen. But there's just a number of episodes where it does, and it's always really nice.
Yeah, you remember and I really like the whole like I want to know more about the like smuggling, crime-ridden, elements of the Star Trek universe. Like, remember those guys in Star Trek 3 where like they had the Genesis information, they got it to Krug, and then like Krug blasted them out of the stars. Like, did he see it? Yeah, they saw it. Nah, unfortunate. Boom. Like Mal Reynolds didn't do well that day. But I always love that kind of stuff in Star Trek because, the Federation, there's going to be people trying to get around them. Oh,
for sure. I mean, and they've had that forever. All the way back to the original series, there are like
Harry Mudd,
like
baby.
that.
Harry
exactly.
Mudd.
But we haven't seen it en masse. It hasn't been as prevalent in a lot of the Star Trek, especially, I guess, TNG era felt very, where you go to all the planets are these planets with their very specific political situations that we're going to discuss with their leaders, and it's not like just dealing with people in bars,
yeah,
and crime syndicates and stuff.
It's like we didn't really get it at all almost, and then like there was like a whole series of it in DS9 where it's just like, Quark, I'm watching you.
Well, there's Quark, and there's also Garrick, who seems like has all kinds of weird connections, and they're constantly worrying about smugglers on that show, even the ones that aren't like common to the show, like they aren't main characters like Quark and Garrick, but there's just constantly like someone's on the ship and we got to watch out for this rogue element, It's a ship. I call it a ship, but the station.
I know what you meant.
Love it. I love that stuff, and it just feels realistic that there would be and not only there's all kinds of political dissidents and stuff on DS9, but there's also just people looking to make money or fake their death or like whatever. There's always someone trying an angle, having their own purposes, and it's not always about some larger political purpose or like a planet size struggle or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see.
It was. And this episode had a lot of DS9. DS9 is our favorite series. They had a lot of DS9. They actually had a lot of references from a lot of Star Trek in this episode that I enjoyed. But I did love seeing a little DS9 love, like Felton Prime, the mention of Felton Prime, Cardassian planet from DS9. You know, seeing the Changeling, first live action Changeling that we saw since the last episode of DS9.
Wow.
And I like hearing DS9 still canon. Like, sometimes they ignore it to a point where I'm just like,
yeah, it's something that it really bums me out because I think, you know, like you said, DS9's our favorite. And so much of the crossover that they've been doing, I mean, clearly Picard is a lot of TNG crossover. But even on Lower Decks and Prodigy, they're like all about the Voyager crossovers, you know. And
TOS, yeah.
I mean, we did get that holographic version of Odo, which was amazing, and we got Quark's bar in Picard. So there've been a few things, but it does feel like the major crossovers, like the actual characters appearing and stuff, have been mostly Voyager stuff. Biggest example being, of course, Janeway.
Yeah, I do feel like it's mostly Voyager and the original series. You know, with TNG coming in a fair third.
Well, I don't know. TNG, it's got that whole run with Boimler as on the Titan.
That's true.
That was pretty significant.
Well, I think that TNG comes in third on references, but I do think that TNG their references are more iconic because that's what everyone will know. Like, you know what I mean?
That's possible. Yeah, that's possible. I think they all have, you know, we grew up in that era, and I think like that resonates with us for sure. But I think because of Lower Decks occurring in the TNG era, basically, or like directly after. There's a lot of references. There's a lot of similarities that don't reach the like level of reference, but they're just like, oh, these ships look like this, you know? There's literally the fact that Riker is a captain, you know, like just the fact that Riker is there is just like, you know, only possible because they chose a time period shortly after TNG.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess Prodigy seems like it's pretty close in time period now that I think about it.
Prodigy is definitely post-Voyager.
Right.
As is Lower Decks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like Lower Decks, though, definitely they were going for more of a TNG feel. Mike McMahon, showrunner, that's his favorite series. So pretty much that whole show is a TNG reference. So
yeah. No, for sure. Well, it literally is. There's like literally an episode of TNG called Lower Decks. Right.
Yep. In name. So yeah, I have no proof and percentages about references.
No, obviously.
It does feel like DS9 gets the short shrift most of the time.
Yeah, it really does. It feels very rare in comparison. But maybe we'll get more of that. Maybe in this episode, you know, I mean, it's happening in a casino, so you get that sense that this is a place similar to Quark's bar.
Yeah. Man, I loved Owo in this episode.
Yeah.
I have loved her every time we've seen her. And look, I was thinking, like, God, if Tilly was here on the show still, she would have been there with Michael.
Yeah.
So if that's the trade-off we get, a little more time with Owo, I'm okay with it.
Or oh wow, as they termed her.
Right. The most ferocious fighter this side of Felton Prime.
Oh wow. Oh, Oshiko. I forget her first name.
I always like her. And I felt like she has been very underserved on the show.
Agreed.
I loved her conversation with Tarka. I don't remember anyone's first names, by the way. So if that was a minute ago when you were like, I don't remember, if that was, you know, you asking, you're barking
I was just trying to remember because they said it as like a boxer. They gave her the middle name, Oh Wow, which I thought was very funny. It's something, Oh Wow, Oh Oshiko.
It's a Woshikan.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, they said it like 50 times in this episode. But yeah, I loved her conversation with Tarka about, you know, loss and ego, and all of that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting to see someone come up against someone who's so smart. Like, their intelligence is clear, like Tarka, but then you have someone that just has some wisdom that they don't have. you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's always an interesting juxtaposition to see someone sort of someone who's so intelligent, sort of taken off balance by being challenged by someone that actually has sort of the wisdom to understand that knowledge isn't everything.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah, I do too. And I actually liked, while the card game itself was boring to me.
I liked Burnham and Book, the way they were acting. I liked and the way them cheating together was fun, regardless of what was going on with the cards.
Yes, I agree. And I really like this idea of them, like, you know, I love this guy, this Haz Mazzaro.
Yeah.
Talking about, you know, he keeps saying, you know, the battle of bygone love, and he keeps bringing up, you know, how something has happened and make their love falter. But, you know, I really enjoyed that their issue is not love. Their issue is philosophy. Their issue is, you know, they are not going to be able to come to an agreement on how to handle this situation. And that will wind up being their undoing. I really liked that. And yeah, I did enjoy that she tracked it at the end and still had a way to get to it. You know, that was nice.
Yeah, she kind of like
nice.
won the game before the game ever started, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like all that weight was put on the game at the end, but really she had already won with that tracker.
Yeah, we got very little bit of Culber and Stamets and dealing with Culber's anxiety issues and his feelings of failure regarding Book specifically.
Yeah, super small amount, but I loved the cleaning bit.
I felt bad for the Dot,
I know,
though.
It was so funny. Go back to your dock. And the Dot like lowered its head and rolled away. Like, why is it programmed to lower its head? That's very funny.
And then like peeked out. Well, when they walked out, you know, he was like, finally back to my cleaning. My only purpose.
Let me have. I have one job on this ship.
What was? It reminded me of the butter serving bot on Rick and Morty.
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember?
Totally.
Like he like rolls up and hands Rick the butter, and he goes, "What is my purpose?" And he's like, "You serve the butter." And he just drops his head and goes, "Oh my God."
Oh, Rick, why did you give that thing sentience? Why? Cruel, just cruel, Rick.
If you guys haven't seen Rick and Morty, you got to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I can't wait for the new season to come. Love it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just always thinking that.
Yeah,
more often than not.
About the butter thing.
Yes, about both. I can't wait for more episodes, and then also I am always thinking about that butter bot.
Yeah, there's a few shows, man, that I'm just loving so much this year. I mean, like I always get really excited for the Marvel stuff because we get really into that over in the MCU cast. But then there's just been a few that like just completely out of my norm that like I've really been loving. Peacemaker being one of them. Just it's just cracking me up every freaking week, man. So funny.
And this newest episode was absolutely heartbreaking.
Yes, it was absolutely heartbreaking, but also hilarious at the same time. It's that James Gunn thing where he can be full on comedy and full on heart all at the same time and not skip a beat. Like it just feels. I've said it 100 times on the MCU cast, but the scene where Star-Lord challenges Ronan to a dance off.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of my favorite scenes in like media because it's like it reminds me of things like Shaun of the Dead where you can have like it turn on a dime, but when you see the character of Ronan and then you see the character of Star-Lord, you don't think those two characters almost can exist on the screen at the same time. One is so serious, one is so silly that it like almost seems like one would hurt the other's vibe. And him challenging Ronan to a dance-off is one of my favorite things ever. And like that kind of a thing happens through Peacemaker all throughout where like something deadly serious is happening and someone is very upset, but they're also just making it, some of the characters are so silly at the, like their very nature is so silly that it you can't stop laughing and crying at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I can stop laughing and crying, but mostly I just watch the show with a big dopey grin on my face.
Yeah,
But,
same.
yeah, I'm always very, very impressed by how they're tackling that show, and I'm really looking forward to whatever he's doing after Guardians 3, because he has said he's doing another DC series that will be in the Suicide Squad universe and will be not as comedic as Peacemaker, will be a lot darker.
I'm up for darker. I'd be sad for him to leave behind the comedy, though, because I do love...
I doubt he'll leave it completely, but...
Sure. Hope not. Because I think Peacemaker's pretty dark in theme, and it's pretty intense with the action, but like it's so funny, and I love that mix.
I think he just meant that he's going for something more serious.
I need to see Brightburn. I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it either. I've got it.
I've
got it on Blu-ray. It's just I've got it on Blu-ray and digital, and I haven't looked at it yet.
I need to check it out. All right. Well, I guess we've gone afield of Star Trek. Is there any other things about this episode you wanted to touch on?
I can't remember if we talked about when they did the mid-season finale. Did we talk about how the isolytic weapons that were banned as part of the second Khitomer Accords were used by the Sauna in Star Trek Insurrection?
I think so. I feel like you may have mentioned it on the last episode, but so in Star Trek Insurrection, they used them on their own people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I really liked all the little references. Haas trying to sell divorce scanners. They were a species from the Delta Quadrant and Voyager. I really enjoyed all of his weird sayings. A swamp rat could have learned the Horton hustle since I last saw you.
Yeah.
Do you know what a Horta is, Matt?
That's one of the sort of dog-like creatures, right? From the Klingons?
No, it's from The Devil in the Dark. You remember like the big mound of rock that kind of shimmied? And like it turned out like the silicone orbs they were finding and using were like her eggs. It looks like a big mound of rock, but it shimmies. Okay. It kind of shimmies because it was like a person under there, like shimmying back and forth and crawling around.
Weird. So
you're talking about, he says the Horton hustle, and I'm thinking of this thing and like this big rock thing shimmying around.
That's weird. Oh, it's a targ is the thing I'm thinking of.
Yes, you're thinking. I think you're
the Klingons have targs.
Yeah, and I've missed you like a Cardassian Mrs. Cake. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that made me laugh real hard. There's a line in a rap song. It's like, I love you like a fat kid loves cake.
Mm-hmm.
And like I felt like that was a reference to that directly.
Maybe too.
I'm trying to remember who rapped that. Let me look it up.
When he says I'm a banta tree either way, the bantan was a spicy vegetable that Neelix used on Voyager.
Oh, fun.
And Kes grew that in her hydroponics garden. What in the Caterpod and Calaman Sherry is going on here? That's two different references. Caterpods were grown by Bajoran farmers on DS9, and Data ordered Calaman Sherry while he was on his final date with Jenna Desora on TNG.
Wow.
I love to act like an Armus swim the Peranthian Ocean with weighted boots. So there are several Armuses? Or is he just referencing the single Armus that we got from Skin of Evil, the black trash bag creature who killed Tasha Yar?
Interesting.
Yeah. They mentioned Elan of Troyes. It's true what the Alessians say, give a man a Torbach and you are warm in the desert. I love all that shit. You know, it's dumb and it makes the universe a little smaller, but it's also like total fan service. And as I have said, I am a fan. Service me. Well,
it's fan service, but it's not hurting the overall thing. Right. It's not hurting the overall tale or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I love you like a fat kid loves cake is a 50 Cent lyric.
Oh, okay. Did you notice that the royalty cards that they had were different aliens? Like the king was a Cardassian, and I think the queen was Natalia's species from Star Trek Beyond, the woman with like the weird things wrapped around the back of her head.
Wow, that's cool.
And
I didn't see that.
Yeah. That was the whole thing. I don't know. I just had fun seeing all that stuff, but
yeah, dude, for sure. That's freaking awesome.
I don't know that I have a whole lot more. I did actually really like Admiral Vance talking about how he just got his family back. That was touching.
Oh yeah, and him feeling regret for letting Tarka in, sort of like trusting Tarka and allowing him to do this. It's real crazy. Yeah, it's good, man. It's really been good. And I enjoyed the whole thing with the Admiral also coming to Burnham to get her to go against the president's wishes, you know.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I can't tell you this on book, but off book, this is what you should do.
And that shit's in order.
Yeah, and that shit's in order.
He didn't say it that way, but
I really am excited to see who these aliens are, species 10C, because it seems like they're so... If they're any kind of alien that they can form some sort of relationship with, which seems possible with this show, like if this was, you know, Next Generation or original series or Voyager, I would feel like they're going to meet some crazy aliens and then we're never going to see them again. But being Discovery, I feel like, and the way they're introducing it with an entire season, I feel like this might open up the Star Trek universe to some sort of bigger scale than we've ever known it to have before. Because we're talking about aliens that apparently may exist outside of our galaxy. So I'm excited to see like who those could be, and if we can form a relationship with them. Is there a way to like, become like part of a bigger Federation? You know, can the Federation ally with someone that's outside of the galaxy? Especially after they've harmed so much of our galaxy unknowingly.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be the biggest get? Is like they come to them with the diplomacy, and then they just become part of the Federation.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Or they already have their own Federation.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, a bigger Federation.
Yeah, and they like drag our Federation into it.
Yeah, like maybe they've broken their own prime directive is kind of how I see it, because this seems like a species so big and outside of our galaxy that they could be looking. The fact that they're dredging our galaxy for energy as if it's just like, you know, whatever. It just feels like a puddle they're, you know, drilling in or whatever, which is crazy. Like who are these beings and how powerful must they be?
And, you know, part of me is like, oh, I hope they're the preservers, or I hope they're the offshoots of the preservers who didn't realize that anything ever came of that, you know.
Oh, right.
You know, that experiment or that seeding of the galaxy, or maybe they do know and like they disagreed, or they disagree with their ancestors and they're like, look, we created you, we can destroy you.
Yeah, scrapping the old project for its parts. Yeah, they need some of that material or whatever.
Unless I'm just not remembering how the preservers work. If there was definitive proof, I thought it was just like, well, we didn't think they survived. This is a myth, and then like they had the little hologram thing.
Yeah,
where they talked to all the different species they seeded.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll talk to you guys next week about some Star Trek. Now we got a few weeks of Discovery ahead, and then we'll get Picard back very, very soon. Woo! Yeah, I'm excited. Me too, man. Me too. Just all the Star Trek. Woo! Rolling them onto my tongue. And sucking out the marrow of the bones. Gotta suck out the marrow, man. Zolan true. Gross. Live long and prosper. Oh, gross. Wonderful Star Trek marrow. Marrow doesn't move. Marrow doesn't move. I think of that so often. Damn critic. Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.